Hi. I'm here to talk about SK's Spider Man No Way Home review. Something that I want to make clear is that I think that SK is a talented person. I don't know him personally, but he seems like a nice, respectful person, and it really feels like he puts lots of effort into his videos. And I've seen a lot of his videos, and I think that most of them are really good. I think that he's done some pretty impressive things, and when he uploads a new video, I often check it out. I think that some of his reviews could be done a bit differently, in my personal opinion. If SK and his fans disagree with my thoughts about his Spider Man No Way Home review, I think that is perfectly fair. And I truly do wish the best for SK and all of his fans. I think that people being kind to each other is much more important than agreeing about thoughts about a film. So I want to make that all perfectly clear. I do think that there are some people that have had problems with SK, and I just think that his No Way Home review could have been done a bit differently. I don't have any huge issues with SK. He seems like a much better reviewer than I am, and so I am not trying to start any controversies or huge debates or anything like that. But I do really want to give my opinions about his Spider Man No Way Home review. Because Spider Man No Way Home is easily my favorite film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Uh, I think that it's an incredibly entertaining film, and SK had a lot of problems with No Way Home. And he did bring up some of the good stuff. And when it comes to No Way Home, I feel like some of the reviews that are like bad, talking about a bunch of stuff that doesn't work, I feel like they make points that make sense, but the thing about No Way Home is that I don't think that it should be reviewed in the same way as something like The Dark Knight, Logan, uh, films like that. I feel like it's not a film that was made to be analyzed and really thought about. I've have thought about No Way Home, and when I've done that, I've been able to think of things that don't really make sense in the plot, but it doesn't stop the film from being my favorite film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's a lot of things about like Peter and Doctor Strange setting up the spell and their big plan. A lot of decisions made with the villains. There's lots of things that are questionable, and if you really put a lot of effort into thinking about things, it would be easy for things to not make sense. And SK does bring up a lot of those things. But Spider Man No Way Home really feels like a film that's not about characters making the most intelligent decisions or anything like that. It's a film that is about nostalgia, it is about fan service, and it does those things so well. Um, and it's something really great, like not just having um, an actor that played Spider-Man show up in the film, but having two actors that played Spider-Man returning as Spider-Man and meeting the current Spider-Man and having them interact. Bringing back five of the actors that played villains in previous stuff and having them reprise their roles, having J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson and having a few cool cameos. And if you think like certain characters didn't get the most to do, like Lizard and Sandman, that's fair. But complaining about like certain characters not making decisions that make the most sense for the plot and stuff like that, like you can technically do that. You are allowed to. That's not a bad thing. But I do think that No Way Home isn't a film to really be thought about in that kind of way. it doesn't feel like a film like The Dark Knight where it feels like everything is super detailed, trying to think about like what logical decision a character would make. SK seems very focused on that, and it's perfectly okay if he wants to do that. And I think it's perfectly fine to have different ways of going about reviewing films. But I do think that he is limiting his own personal enjoyment of films by doing that, because there are a lot of really good films where characters don't make the most logical decisions. And personally, and I think a lot of people disagree with this, but I do want to make my opinion clear. I would rather have a film that has what I want to happen occur than have characters make choices that make the most sense. For example, I love Tim Burton's Batman films a lot more than Christopher Nolan's Batman films. Christopher Nolan's Batman films feel like the characters make more logical decisions, things make more sense in the plot, and all that stuff. But Tim Burton's Batman films, way more interesting, memorable. They work better as pieces of entertainment, which think is what superhero films should generally be. And I think that Spider Man No Way Home is incredibly entertaining with so many moments that I remember and think about often. So many scenes with the villain, so many scenes with the returning versions of Spider Man that are so much fun to see. And I think that they carry the film. Uh, the Batman came out not too long after No Way Home, and I think that No Way Home is a much better film than the Batman. The Batman feels like a film where it could feel more realistic. Characters are making choices that make sense for the plot, but in my personal opinion, it's okay if you disagree, but I think that film is really boring, and very little about it is memorable and really stands out. And Spider Man No Way Home, there's plenty of decisions that characters make that I don't really get, and certain choices with some of the characters are odd, but it's such a fun film that really pops out. And I think that it really does work as a huge piece of fun entertainment that has so many moments that are so strikingly fun, and I think that it works so well, and I think that is the big standout film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general, where a lot of films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are watchable enough but don't leave much of a lasting impact on me. But Spider-Man No Way Home, I think about so often, have so much fun with. And I can understand people thinking like, well, things make more sense in the Captain America movies, and there's better character development and better choice and all that stuff. But the Captain America films for me felt okay, but not super interesting or memorable. Spider-Man No Way Home is an incredibly impactful film that works so well. And I don't think that characters making choices that don't make the most sense gets in the way of the film. I think that it's such a good piece of entertainment that holds up so well. So I really did want to give my opinions about that, and if SK and his fans disagree, that's totally acceptable, and you can let me know what you think.